and inform the community on what it does, how it works, and how people can immediately participate in it, because it is literally as simple as downloading the code and you become a node in the CJDNS network. It doesn't relate to mining. So, it uses a nominal amount of bandwidth. And once you do install that and become a node on the network, you are able to packet transfer like real packets of data. So it's not dummy data like announcement mining. So we've been starting to have these very long conversations. Yesterday we had a 2.5 hour conversation internally. Caleb, myself over at Pack-a-Pal, Caleb, myself, Josh, Jeremy, a few other people, and started talking about like, okay, what could we do to get the equivalent of like a Docker image that people could download and quickly become a node on the CJDNS network? And then what can you do with it once that's propagated, and what is that? So that's my long way of just giving an intro and a little backstory on where this all came from. And I would actually love to kick it over to Caleb and let you kind of ramble on for a few about CJDNS, and maybe a little bit of, teasing a little bit of what we've been talking about on an, obviously it's already existing, but what this next like MVP could potentially be, and also what it does, and how this can give, our developer community a bunch of new opportunities of things that they can build. So fire away, Caleb. You want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. So this is not actually the first time that we're building something with CJDNS. Obviously, it's been around for a long time, and back in 2013, 2014, well, even 2012, there was a lot of websites on the network, on the Hyperborea network, which is Hyperborea is just a term that we use to call the CJDNS network. But we built a lot of websites, and it was fun. It was fun to make a website, and then people in the community could go to it. And you could also host it on anything. It didn't need to have a public IP address because it had the IP from the CJDNS node. You just need to install CJDNS on your server, and then somebody installed it on their computer, and they could view the website. But it's a bit gone by the wayside, and one of the reasons was because the browsers got really they really locked down the ability to go to websites. They made it so that if you don't have a public IP6 address, then IP6 doesn't work at all. And then they made it so that you needed to have like SSL certificates in order to be able to have most of the features of a website. So got really hard over the years. And so we were just kind of talking about a way to get some activity going again is to start using the technology that we're supposed to be using from the beginning for being able to run like a website, and then be able to pay somebody who runs a website. So the Lightning Network stuff, that's an ongoing project, and Demetrius says that he was able to get it to send a transaction between two Lightning nodes that were on through CJDNS with a pay to CJDNS address. So that's something else that's kind of ongoing. And what we were thinking was, CJDNS is it's not trivially easy to install. So we might make it a little easier by making it so that you can install it using the Docker image. That by the way, the Docker image already exists. So if you want to run a VPN exit, it's Packeteer, GitHub Packeteer packet server. That's it. I'll put it in the chat later. But you can just run that in order to have a VPN exit in CJDNS node, and it's like one command. That's how I install CJDNS these days. What we were thinking was if we could make it so that you could run that Docker on your laptop, your desktop, then it'd be an easier way to get CJDNS going on your laptop. And then we just have to deal with, and also you get the wallet included as well. And then we only just have to get some way to solve these problems with the browser locking us down, and then we could get back to where we were in the old days, to where we can run our websites. Except now you can run a website and then you can do payments on that website. It's hosted in the network, and then but you can also pay to the operator of the website, or get paid from the website or whatever, through the Lightning transaction. So it seemed like an interesting thing to do. Now, I've not stopped work on the network steward vote stuff. That's still ongoing, but this is another activity that we can potentially have something that people can hold in their hands in the next maybe by the end of October, even sooner. I mean, if you're willing to play with beta software. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah, look, yeah, so I'll try and break that down. So basically, well, one of the key things, right, Caleb, is that the payment address will be your CJDNS, your IPv6 address for being able to send payments. So that's one component of it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And that directly relates to PLD and what you and Dimitri's have been working on with Lightning.
Yeah.
That was
so
like one of the kind of.
We just put the two of them together, CJDNS and PLD, in the Docker image that you can run, and you've got a wallet and a VPN system. It's already what's in the Android app.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just we need to get that Android app onto desktop. That's like another hurdle that needs help. But let's talk about this other thing that you and I were discussing yesterday around how to get the CJDNS IPv6 address linked up to a packet wallet, and the secret thing that we were talking about, or it's not keeping it secret, but like how to incorporate the secret into the wallet.
Oh, it's just a ritual, so to speak, because Lightning requires this piece of data called an invoice to be sent in order to be able to pay. You can't just throw money at somebody the way you can with a regular blockchain. So you need an invoice, and so the ritual is that you connect to their CGDNS node and you ask the PLD instance for an invoice, and then you send it the coins, and that way, from your perspective, the user, it looks like you're just sending to the CGDNS address instead of any kind of a packet address.
So, and will you explain the other piece of it, which is how that you link a CJDNS IPv6 address to a pre-existing wallet that has a seed?
Oh yeah. So how do you recover, like if you delete your instance, how do you recover your CJDNS address from your seed? That's there's a thing in Packet Wallet called Get Secret, and we use that, and it creates a secret that's it's a deterministic random number that comes from the wallet, from your wallet seed, and then that we use that to create the CGDNS conf file, and that kind of chains them together. So as long as you write down your seed words, you can recover the exact same CGDNS address again.
Yeah, which is huge. So, because one of the things is we obviously have so many community members that have wallets, and then if they're going to download and install CJDNS Docker, and then going to want to bolt their CJDNS IPv6 address onto their pre-existing wallet, that would be the steps that they would take, right? So ultimately, you would want the major wallet contributors to eventually be able to integrate the ability to add an IPv6 address to their current packet wallet.
Yeah, I mean that would be ideal if we have a solution here that then we can encourage people that develop wallet UIs to build on this stack.
Yeah. So this was getting me really excited about this, because even if, let's say, Token Strike was launched, one of the things we talked about in our last conversation was the hurdle that would be required to operate in what is essentially a brand new ecosystem of Token Strike, which is, wallet integrations. There's all kinds of questions around custody, transactability, where you go and constitute new coin supplies, dexes for transacting or trading tokens. There's a lot. It's a big undertaking. So even at the point that even at the point that Token Strikes becomes real, there's still a lot of road to build. But the interesting thing about the CJDNS project is it's super mature, and in terms of what you're doing, this is where it gets really kind of cool. Is essentially this is a subnet. It's a network that exists adjacent to the current internet, and the websites and content that's built in that network, those URLs essentially are not directly accessible through your browser on on like the normal internet essentially. So one of the things that we were talking about is how would you reach websites that are built on CJDNS? So we started talking about SOX protocol and the way that like Tor based websites are being reached. You want to talk a little bit about that, Caleb, and just how to build this network? Because it's, in a lot of ways, it's like a metaverse. It's like a whole new world that's being built. There's things that are happening in CJDNS and been happening for over a decade over there. And Pacapel's arguably the most prolific operator in the CJDNS network right now. But the idea here is to kind of support gaining information within the community for other people to start to build there, because it's an integral part of the Paca project, and there's so much that can be done there, and it's a lot easier to build there. I mean, because we're literally talking about building a website, which a lot of people know how to do with their eyes closed. Even if you're a novice, in the computer engineering world or just like web world, you can build a website. And so that makes it so it's so much easier, the low barrier of entry for people to participate in the project.
Yeah, so the way it works in the network is we generally don't do any HTTPS because we don't need to. It's already encrypted, and we just basically you stand up a server with a website on it and then you're done. The challenge is that over the past decade, the browser makers have really kind of had it out for us, or if they didn't intend to have it out for us, they definitely threw a banana peel our way, because they locked a lot of things down to where you got to have SSL certificates, you got to have you got to have a public IP address for the SSL, and it all just became, the browser makers forced the internet to become a lot more corporate in general, and so the challenge is, how do we get around that? How do we put something on the computer that can make it so the browser doesn't know better? And some of the ideas that we kicked around is like, what's Tor doing, and try to do what they're doing, or to run like make a certificate authority, on the computer, like just generate one and then have you install that certificate while you're setting it up, so that then it can just create HTTPS websites arbitrarily, under a special domain name, of course. But that would that kind of thing was what we're going to need in order to kind of compel the browsers to play nice, in order that we can have a good web experience through CJDNS. Because right now, mostly CJDNS is used for machine-to-machine communication. It's not really, there are some websites, but they're not the norm anymore, because it's just become so hard to use it with the browsers.
So what's the yeah, go for it.
Sorry, was that for me? Yeah, I was just saying that the big problem is the browsers.
Yeah. So you would need some sort of client to go through. Is that right, Caleb?
There's got to be something, yeah. I mean, generally, I don't want to tell people to uninstall Chrome because to use a different browser than Chrome because it's just the browser business is so hard to get into. I mean, you
Yeah.
got Brave, they did their best, but it's a moving target. Nobody wants to develop a browser. Um, So next best thing is to kind of make something that makes the existing browsers play nice, like having a certificate authority installed on the computer, something like that would make it so that the browser doesn't know that it's not dealing with corporate web.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Super exciting stuff. Um, does anyone in the community here have any questions for Caleb or Jesse? Kuzu, Ivo, some of the other members that are requested to speak, your invites have been sent, so you just have to accept so you can come up onto the stage. Anyone else who has any questions, feel free to hop up onto the stage here and make a request, and I'll shoot you up. But yeah, you guys have to accept the invite.
I have a question, Caleb. So, from a hosting standpoint, are you just hosting this thing on your computer, and then that's connecting through the CJDNS node?
I mean, typically you don't want to host a website on your laptop because you might turn it off. But if you have like an old machine in your house or something like that, there's no reason why you can't host a website on that. I mean, I've got 3 or 4 websites hosted on a machine at my house, and it's all tunneled through CJDNS. So, yeah, you can host on anything, and it doesn't need to be at a data center. The only limitation is turn it off. People are gonna, want to use your website. It's turned off.
Right. And then, and so let's just say, people are, let's just say we're talking about a server then that doesn't get turned off. That's just being hosted locally, and the CJDNS node allows that to be accessible when you use that IP address? Or is it like, what's the format of the actual like URL to find that website?
So that's a good question. Back in the old days, we used to just register regular old domains on the regular old DNS system, just like a regular website. That stopped working because the browser makers stopped it from working. So what still works is to paste the literal IP6 address into your browser. But I mean, it's ugly, but it still works. Now, I mean, we could imagine a future where we set up our own naming system and packet. That would not be actually that hard, and so we could have our own names, kind of like Namecoin type thing. Yeah, Coclino fan just put in the chat there what it looks like. It's a bracketed IP6 address with the FC at the beginning. You put HTTP before that, and that's your website.
Pretty sexy looking.
Yeah, it's gonna be ugly to start. And Caleb, he said, he was like, well, how do we want to wait until we have proper names service? And I just said no. I mean, this is like Packet before the GUI wallets, is in before the GUI miners. It sucked to install Packet.
The Netscape era.
Yeah, it's the Netscape era. It's even worse than that, actually. It's like the MS-DOS era, It sucks.
Good old days.
But I just figured, you know what? F it. Let's just dive in head first. And, put the tools out there for people to build. And what will happen is smart people in the community are going to go, oh, you know what? I'm going to bang on this for a month or two, and we're going to GUI it, and we're going to Docker it, and we're going to polish it up, and we're going to build tools that can take some of these command line functions and make them appify them or whatever, and that'll be the evolution of this. Now, so let's just talk a little bit about what's happening. Like, what is it? Like, who cares? So you have the regular internet that you can Google it up and Safari it up, and you have these major web services that are getting you search across the internet, and then you have CJDNS, which is like its own world, and you can reach it through the regular internet, but you can't browse it through the regular internet right now. Like those websites aren't going to be SEO ranked, etc. So so basically what's happening is you're going to have this whole, let's just call it, Tor is referred to as a dark net. I love calling this Hyperborea because first off, that's what it's called, but it's like this mythical land, this separate place in the world. Caleb said people have also referred to it as the mesh net, and I like calling it the light net. But it's this separate world where people can build, and initially, things that can be built there. I was saying to Caleb, I was like, well, maybe the very first thing that you build there is a syndicate of or a proxy of some sort of some of the major contributors in the Packet project. So maybe a Explorer gets set up over there, and maybe Packet Watch gets set up over there, or something simple like the decimation tracker. Just someone
I have
talking.
so many questions for you.
It's hard to hear you a little bit.
You hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
I have so many questions for you. I've been into this whole lot of website stuff for like 1 year, but I don't know if the CGD. I don't know how secure it is.
Caleb, you want to talk on the security level of CJDNS? Is that what you're talking about, CJDNS, from a security standpoint?
Exactly.
So let me try to illustrate how security of encrypted communications works. There's two things you got to worry about. One is can the encryption be broken? And the answer is not since the 90s. Everything has been okay. It can't be broken since like the 90s.
I get that. But that there have been this serious rising of an AI system and all that. The AI hackers, the giants, they're all experts at all this. So I don't know how safe this is, because the super computers can break most codes, even got to happen to most wallet. Hello?
Yeah, the kind of security issue that you have to worry about is called man in the middle attack. That's the one that is realistic, and the way CJDNS prevents that is that the IP6 address is the hash of your key. So as long as you get the IP6 address right, you are talking to the right device on the network, the right node. Nobody is doing a man in the middle on that connection. Then you have there's little things like traffic analysis and just watching things and guessing what might happen, and that's always going to be there. There's always going to be somebody kind of like just watching the wire and looking at data flows. Incidentally, Packet Crypt it's really good for preventing that, because if you got somebody watching, just sitting there on the wire watching traffic, and then the wire's just loaded with packet crypt traffic, it's really hard for them to figure out what else is going on. Like, the best thing you can do is set up a VPN and then mine packet crypt through that VPN. Because if anybody's trying to store all the data from that VPN, or they're trying to watch you and figure out like your browsing patterns or whatever on that VPN, the fact that
Okay,
there's
it's gonna
so
bounce
much,
them like the server is gonna bounce around. Is that what you mean?
I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do. You know, I mean, if you're trying to be anonymous, that's a different story. But that's anonymity is not a design objective of CJDNS. Anonymity is hard. There is no anonymity online. There's no website on the internet that has ever existed for significant amount of time and pissed off like big powerful like governments without them figuring out one way or another who runs it. I mean, all those darknet markets, they always get found out. They have ways to find out
Who's behind it?
So anonymity on the internet, not really possible. I don't think it's really possible.
Yeah, and that's never been really the intent of Packet, is to be anonymous. The intent of Packet is to create censorship resistance, to be able to maintain ownership, to not be shut down by a government, by big tech or things like that. So there's a difference between being anonymous and being sovereign.
All right. You're good.
That answers your question.
I think of 20%.
Okay.
Guess that's good enough. Good start.
I was gonna say jump into the chats. It'll be a lot easier for us to answer any written questions, and for Caleb to get into a dialogue with you about whatever you're trying to build and what you're looking for as far as like tech stack and functionality. And so ideally that I'm sure if you have a question about it or a concern, that there's other people in the community who would probably have asked similar questions, or it sounds like it might be a good topic for further dialogue. What I was going to say though is like, the key here is starting to build things, and giving people the ability to build. Because as I mentioned in the beginning of this kind of powwow was, that being one of the major limitations with the Packet project, is that there's not really a way for people to come in and just like build things without, it being directly related to mining. And so this, I really felt, it just kind of like dawned on me. I was like, whoa, it's just like low hanging fruit, it's just sitting here. And literally PacketPal built on CJDNS every single day. And so I just figured we should really kind of illuminate ways for everyone else to begin building on CJDNS as part of the Packet project and start connecting the dots. I figured maybe another great thing to talk about, Caleb, would be, why don't you just talk about how PacketPal is using CJDNS, and maybe that can inspire some people to get some ideas for how things are functioning there, or have some questions about what's actually happening with the Packet network. Now that if you look at the homepage of the Packet.cash website, you can see it has a number now tracking the number of thousands of people that are using the Packet network, and that is entirely a number that's based on the number of people using CJDNS and the PacketPal technology.
Yeah, so what we do at PacketPal is, CJDNS is two things for PacketPal. The first thing, oh, by the way, I'm talking to you now. I'm connected to my Mini. I'm tunneled through a CJDNS node in the UK actually. I just do it all the time now. I set up a staff network a Mini can have a staff network, and I set the staff network to be with VPN enabled. So I just log into that with a regular password, and it's a VPN.
Wow. I mean, you sound perfect. There hasn't even been one drop of, sound out of place. So nice work. Sounds great.
Oh yeah, and it's actually better than my ISP modem, because if I go in the other room with my ISP modem, the quality drops off pretty significantly. But I'm connected to an edge extender, and I've got all the bars. Anyway, how we use, how PacketPal uses the CJDNS is, for one, for the VPN technology. So all the VPNs that PacketPal uses for the devices are CJDNS VPNs. They're NordVPN VPNs. They're fully compatible with the VPN app. So if you download the Android VPN app, and then you look through the VPN list, you'll actually see the PacketPal VPNs. They're on the list there. You can even connect to them, use them. So PacketPal uses those VPNs for exiting client traffic, and then the other thing that we do is we use CJDNS in order to be able to connect remotely to our PacketPal devices. So the devices do have call home functionality, but sometimes we just need to be able to get remote to talk to them remotely. We don't have access to them because they have wallets, but we do have the ability to talk to them. And so the way that we talk to them is we just dial them up over CJDNS. So that's a secondary feature, is the fact that no matter where one of these devices is, where one of these minis or cubes or whatever may be in the world, it always has a CJDNS address, and that's an address that can be used to communicate with the software that's running on that device.
Yeah, this is all super, super exciting. There's some questions in the chat. Caleb, I don't know if you're seeing any of this stuff, but there was a question from Coco Lino fan that said what he wanted to know is, what is Packet? He says, I know we say get the next billion people online, but what does that mean exactly? So maybe you or Jesse.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I mean, there's about 7 pages written on that topic. It's the Packet Network white paper, but so to try to answer those little pieces without going down a rabbit hole, the point of PKT is to segregate the role of an ISP as a service provider. That is, a person, the company that bills you, that provides you with your service, your access, that has the people who you would call if something's not working correctly, etc. From the infrastructure provider, that's the person who actually runs the wires, and kind of like Uber did with separating transport infrastructure from transport service. The service is one company, but the person doing the transporting is a different person. And doing that to ISPs is a really good idea, because then the person who actually provides you the wire can be more amateur, smaller business kind of operator, and then the person who offers you that service can be remote, anywhere in the world, just coordinating people. So that's the idea. And then where CJDNS fits in is that CJDNS is able to do compact routing, compact source routing, which is really important to being able to scale that design, where you have multiple virtual ISPs resident in the same hardware device. And then the packet coin is about just being able to do a settlement for buying and selling access to this bandwidth, and the mining is just there as to create artificial demand for bandwidth and to issue the packet into existence in some kind of a fair way. That's probably the shortest I can explain it. Obviously, you can see a lot more about it in the white paper. But
Yeah, that's good.
Well, I think the question is like, how are you getting the next billion people online? And I think that's a great question, so it's like, and I think this is where the, connection between CJDNS okay, you have this idea, or it's not even an idea, it's capability to mesh network peer to peer. But how do you get people to do it? How do you get people to propagate that network? So you're building this, network of connected devices that aren't in the same network topography as the way the major building blocks of the internet are currently structured. You can actually do it like at the edge, right? So how do you economically incentivize people to do that? Because since people need economic incentive, that's why people go to work. They don't go to work at Subway because they love Subway. They go to work at Subway to get money. And so how do you get people to build network infrastructure? Well, they need to be paid. There needs to be some sort of remuneration. And so that was where mining kind of came into the picture, was to build a community of people who could passively generate income and then could be economically incentivized to run CJDNS nodes. As more people run CJDNS nodes, you've now created an edge network that's completely powered by the people. And that edge network, can possess immense power. We saw this with Bitcoin. When Bitcoin, was in its, nascent stages, and, a Bitcoin is worth, a tenth of a penny, and then, a penny, and then more and more and more and more over time, it built this powerful network. You now have this decentralized financial network that's completely powered by the people. Everyone who runs a Bitcoin node is supporting that network, and the miners obviously will be mining for over another 100 plus 140 years, and adding new liquidity into that market. And that is completely a financial services network. And so the idea with Packet is to build a network that actually transmits real world data powered by the people. So getting the next billion people online is actually an extension of the network topography and infrastructure, which is derived from what Caleb's saying, which is separating the role of the network operator, which can be an amateur operator, and the network administrator, which is someone who's going to handle payments and do network routing, traffic routing, which is much more complicated. And that all trickles down to, businesses like PacketPal. And now PacketPal has, is heading towards having 10,000 people, utilizing the CJDNS network, or the Packet network, which is, Packet network kind of wraps the CJDNS network into it, as a result of people just going to a coffee shop or going to a restaurant or going to a nightclub and saying, hey, I want to get on the internet with my phone. And that network is being powered by CJDNS, which is helping now, 10,000 people onto the internet. We've done that since March. So as this network, grows and proliferates, hopefully there's more businesses like PacketPal that are helping more people get access to the internet, and that'll be the basis, in whether they be developed worlds or underdeveloped parts of the world. That'll be the basis for getting the next billion people online. The problem that the project's had, as I mentioned, is that a lot of people are just waiting for Caleb, Jesse, Josh, PacketPal, Jeremy, whatever, to build things and bring them to the community. And that's why I was like, hold on, CJDNS was here long before Packet was here. We just kind of been so heads down building wallets and apps and hardware that we never really brought to the forefront the tools that are available for CJDNS. So the idea here is like, let's shine a spotlight on this tech and start working together as a community to help execute the macro plan, which was CJDNS growth. And the barrier to entry to participate in CJDNS is so low. Like, it's literally as low as setting up a an early packet wallet. So, which, for some, if you're having to do stuff in the command line, might not be that low, but hopefully, the brilliant minds, Kuzu, Ivo, Florian, these guys who have been building amazing tech, Dimitri's, etc., Caleb, and start building additional tools that will make this even easier and easier. Get it into a GUI, get it into an app, and then people will be using this network much more readily on a day-to-day basis.
I'd love to see Dr. Kuzu Doctor go and put CJDNS into Miner. I think that would be an awesome addition to that tool. And I think everyone should, install a CJDNS node on a computer. The resources it uses is fractional, nominal. And so, building that network out just, one node at a time. And, there's creating a visualization of all the nodes all over the world, how many nodes are connected, will be really cool as we can keep growing it. I think just like to put a kind of head on what Jesse said about getting the next billion people online, to be able to do that, like, sure, people get online right now, but people don't have the tools to get online, and people don't have the tools to help people get online. And normally it's just these ISPs, and there's such a barrier to entry to become an ISP. And so by Packet building tools for people to become cloud ISPs, or provide infrastructure at the edge to let people get online, that's the real power of the Packet technology. So how you get the next billion people online is you inspire thousands of people to start sharing their resources, and give them the tools to be able to do so in a really easy, frictionless way. There's people right now that are bringing internet to rural places because they want to have internet at their house. And then there's dozens of houses around that one location that have no internet access, or using dial-up or whatever. Packet is providing tools to the one infrastructure provider who spent the money to do that can now fractionalize that and be a provider to that local region. And that can happen whether you're in a rural place in Vermont or whether you're in the jungles of Africa. And so it's all just kind of depends on the person and their ambitions.
Yeah. So last thing, because we gotta hop in a moment, but I just wanted to bring up, like, the last piece of this call. I think will just be roadmap. So Caleb, we were talking about kind of, remember, first base, second base, third base. Do you want to just give a little glimpse of what you're thinking is first base on this, so that people kind of know what to expect and how they can get their hands on it? As you mentioned, like, a lot of the Docker already exists, so like first base is kind of there. We're halfway, or at least halfway there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be nice to get it to where you can install this Docker, and you're able to host a website, and then the CJDNS in the Docker can reach out of the Docker and share your website with the network. That's a little bit more tricky, but it's kind of important, because you want to just like run Docker on your web server. You don't want to have to install CJDNS and PLD. I mean, some people do, but Docker makes it easier for people to install. And then having the ability to pay to a CJDNS address. I think one thing that'd be really cool would be the ability to pay to register your CJDNS address with a web service, and then the web service gives you a regular packet address that you can mine into, and then you mine into that, and it pays you through Lightning, so you don't have to fold. You just mine into that other address, and it folds those coins, pays them to you through the Lightning network. I think that would be really useful service for the community. And in the long term, the pools could just pay with Lightning, but this technology is going to need to get sorted out. That's the only thing. Then I think where we want to be is to where you can run a website in CJDNS, and then you can, as a regular user, easily install it on your computer. I mean, easily might include some command line, but not like ridiculously difficult. And install it on a computer, and then you can go to that website, and you have a wallet as well, and you can pay and receive payment from that website with your local wallet. That's kind of the thinking at the moment.
That's that's first phase is what we're thinking. So there's kind of a couple of different steps within that first phase, and then second phase, which is some of it's already available, is around VPN. Do you want to just quickly talk to that?
So VPN, I mean, it already exists, and VPN you can pay for. We would just make it so that you can pay for it with Lightning, and that you can connect you think you're running on Docker. You could connect that to a VPN as well, and then you could use it to get yourself on the VPN if you have a desktop machine. And then if you are, now one of the things that is more long term, but also interesting, is the ability to use a reverse VPN, where you've got a VPN, you connect to a VPN, you want to host a website to the public internet, but you want to host it from a machine that only has CJDNS. It doesn't have a public IP address. Well, you could connect it to a VPN and then tell the VPN, forward me back this port. So it does a port forward, and that way you can host things at home on a machine like my water cooled PowerEdge servers. You can do something like that, where you don't have to pay the big monthly fee for hosting at the data center. You can just use an old computer, plug it in. If you have fiber internet, you're all set. That, by the way, is how the Packeterium is hosted. That's how my mail server is hosted. Also, one of the Electromex servers is hosted that way. That's all at my house. That's all through a back tunnel, through a reverse VPN on CGD.
Putting you on the spot. Would you be down to do like a record your screen video of just you doing something in CJDNS, like at least like once a month, just put something up, like, hey, here's something that I hear me just doing, like a tutorial walkthrough of me setting this up, setting up a VPN server, whatever, making a payment, just something basic. I think that could just be amazing, because like there's no one on the planet who's more comfortable in CJDNS than you, and getting a couple of those type of like videos of you just doing click through, hey, do this, do that, do this, here's what I set up, that could be so valuable.
A Coquelino fan just volunteered, so I think you got your guy. It is.
All right, well, let's
easy.
I just think like some of the stuff that you're doing that's like maybe on the more advanced side, but that'd be amazing if Coquelino fan could start making some videos. But yeah, I mean, this stuff's live, guys. Like, that was what got me all inspired. I was just like, wait a minute, this already exists. Let's start building here. Let's get the community active. Let's get some websites set up in CJDNS. We already know that in the Android, you can make payments through Lightning. That's there. And Caleb, is the payment to the IPv6 address available in the Anode VPN for Android yet, or is that coming soon?
Not yet with the through Lightning network. That's still an experiment. You can buy VPN using a legacy payment in Android. And Android has the PLD code. So as soon as this becomes more stable, it will land in.
Ooh, you pressed the mute button, Caleb.
Yeah, so actually my internet dropped out. I'm gonna have to figure out if that's my fault or my ISP. So my ISP has some glitches too. Anyway, what was I saying? Completely forgot.
Yeah, you were talking about IPv6 payments through the
Sure. So
anode VPN.
that's the app on Android has PLD, but it's not active in running Lightning channels yet, and it will be one of the first apps to get the support because it already has PLD and CJDNS in the same app. So it's low hanging fruit to make it do this. But the ability to actually make a Lightning payment is still kind of a experimental demonstrator.
Got it. So can people can the Android VPN app for Android code? That's all open source, right?
Yeah, it's on Anode CO GitHub.
Got it. So anyone can go inspect that code, look at what's going on with PLD, try and figure out how to get PLD or the early stages of it into maybe some of these current Packet wallets, Packet World wallet, whatever. All right.
Send me pull requests.
Yeah. All right, fam. Well, this was hopefully, informative for the community and exciting. And, we can start. I think this is also a way to create some inroads. If there's anybody who has any relationship with any other projects in the world that think that, could be some synergy with what CJDNS and Hyperborea represents, what those other projects are doing, and we can potentially do some collabs, AMAs, or anything of that nature with those types of projects that are in the web place. I was actually thinking like something like the Graph, or there's probably a bunch of projects that we could bolt into CJDNS, especially since CJDNS was included into Bitcoin Core 22. So, even the maxis are using CJDNS. So, there's just exciting times, and, I'm excited to see how this can inspire, new ways for people to participate in the Packet project and really start helping us build our community. We can get, more visibility, bigger listings, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera.
Epic. And also, just so everybody knows, we'll be back here doing another roundtable in 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, we're going to do one of these. And I just hope the community keeps showing up. We had over 30 people on the call between Twitter and Discord. So we'll just keep banging on the doors, and hopefully we can get the other 5,470 community members that are on our Discord to show up as well. And just keep on knocking on doors.
All right, cool. Thanks for everyone's time.
All right, thanks for showing
everyone.
up.
We appreciate
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Let's build some shit.
Let's do it.
Cool.
All right, thanks all.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.